They're hijackers. They have hijacked Judaism. They've hijacked it. You know what I mean? And they got the world thinking about. They believe that atonement, that they were put out of, expelled from, let's call it the Holy Land, because of bad behavior, and they have to make atonement to the Almighty, and the Almighty will take. They'll know when it's time to go back or what to go back, and then. The early years of all of this, the enemies of Jews was all Europeans. They couldn't own land in Europe and all kind of stuff. That's why they had to deal in commodities. They would take over the gold market. They would take loan sharking, right? So the world made them do what they do, and now they mad at them for owning all the banks. Well, you can't deal, you can't own this and that, but they could support other people, right? And they could benefit, they could have insurance. Let the other ones know, hey man, we got tons of this over here. Hey man, we ain't got none of that over here. If we can get what y'all got over there for almost free, we could make zillions over here. And so they run them off everywhere. The only ones that helped them was us. You know, I heard a lecture by Abba Eban. He was, 40 years ago, he was the president of the Zionist state. He said when we was expelled from, just talking about Central Europe or something at that time, we went to a place, we call it paradise. It was Palestine. See, we always accepted the Jews everywhere. When 1492, Columbus sailed ocean blue, the same year they expelled, you remember El Cid, the movie, Charleston Heston? They expelled the Moors from, Europe. And they had the Inquisition. What was the Inquisition? You got to swear allegiance to the Lord, And so when you didn't, man, I don't know, it was pretty bad, I would have went along with it to get away with it, but hey, man, they was burning people alive. The Inquisition, the questioning, that's what the Inquisition was. We didn't have a questioning about investigation about everybody left here, that's here. And if you are a Moor or a Jew, and they talk about, example, historically in Spain, when the Muslims came across and took over Spain, when they wanted to, part of their administrators was Ali Kitab, the Jews. So the Jews went from being an oppressed minority, right, to where they're with the big boys and they're Ali Kitab. That's why the Muslims, you go back in history, you'll find that the Muslims and the Jews got put out or wherever they was, usually together. The history of the Jews, you read the history of the Jews, the book, this history of the Jews, before 1913, and read it after 1913. The histories are different. Histories are different. That a lot of the early part, but when you get to that period, about 100-year period back, the early 1900s, and then when you get to Zionism taking hold, the Balfour Doctrine, 1919, you get into all that shenanigans. The point I'm making is, we've been here before, and we don't mind where we are. In fact, we technically like where we are because this is a scriptural position. It's a scriptural position. Whatever we're into, you can read about it in the scriptures. They always are cut off from the public, isolated, and they have a minority view. Their view is not the standard view. And the standard view is the one that gets you into and out of all of their things that they're doing. But that's what we do. And we're not new at it. We've been doing this. And we've had all the time in the world, all the messages in the world, that if we wanted to get out of this and if we wanted to get on the team, their team, it's always been an open card. You're welcome. Bienvenido, welcome. Come on in. It's nice over here. Well, we take a different opinion because of scripture, because of history, right? We kind of know that that's the wrong place to be. And it used to be costly, but it's now beneficial. What do we mean? Other people would think that we've been through a tragic period. It's not a tragic period, it's normal. That's why we always we ready prepared to sleep under a bridge. But any of the people that's been involved in dealing against us, well, let's look at the Oakland takeover. In California, it's the worst place to be. Next to that is LA. Everybody see that? Our two biggest institutions were in LA. Yeah. Where are all of them now? In DC. There's nobody left in DC from the old, they fell for those tricks 40 years ago, easy. Okay, we done taken over the Islamic Center so we can close all the little independent Masjid, close them down. The only one stayed open was Masjid Muhammad. That's why when I got here, everybody went to Masjid Muhammad. All the Negroes, because they closed everybody, all the brothers, the movements, the organizations, whether the Dar, whoever it was, whether it was the Islamic Party, they closed down their centers and they moved in with the monsters over there at Islamic Center. Then when they got them all, the masjid closed, right? Then they threw them all out. And they have no place to go. They didn't have no place to go then. They don't have no place to go now. Therefore, they went to Masjid Muhammad. That's why when I came here in 1989, all the Negroes, hardly nobody agreed with, but that's where the only place you could go. Because see, you get everybody to close down their place, they can do it, they can open up a joint when they're young, but now, if those people are in their 40s and 50s, and some in their 60s, they don't have the energy to, okay, we're going to sacrifice, they're looking for retirement. And that's why it was such a shock when we opened up out here. It was a shock to everybody. And if we sold delicious drinks, other people would go and try to copy that. Everything that we could do. These are the people that wear their pants up high and all of that stuff. So we watched the degeneration of Islamic movement in D.C., around the country, because remember, we went to programs all the time, all over America, all over America, from East Coast to West Coast, from North to South. Most of the time, if we was going to a program, we just fill up our transportation with a lot of books, boxes of books, and sell them. You know, to the hotel when we're going out to Adams Center, and we come off when we come off the little highway, and I said it's a little lake there, and I said, yeah, we used to have programs over there. When I first got here, would go out there. I remember I sold $400 worth of books. Now, that don't sound like a lot to you, but if you sold $400 books and you don't have no overhead, you don't have no overhead because you sleep on the ground or so you have $400. Right? If one of the brothers that worked out at Halalco, a lot of the books that I had were Shia books. He happened to be Shia. So he was working there. He bought a whole stack of the books that we had for Halalco. It was $951. It don't sound like much, but that was big money. When I came here, when I left California, going to Canada, to Toronto, we left California with just a whole lot of books and an old station wagon. We went up there and we sold $1,800 worth of books. So when we came here, everything that you see all over the place started, and you have to visualize this back a few years when things are really moving. Everything started from leaving Oakland, driving all the way over to this side to Toronto. Those programs we used to have. Dr. Kaleem Siddiqui was there and everything. And we sold, don't sound like much now, but $1,800 worth of books. That means to us we was rich. Then we came down here with $1,800 fresh. Then you look around, and every time they have a program, we just set up books just out anywhere, out in the street. When they'd have Eid over at the park over there, what do they call that? Right over there, where the Anacostia runs, Anacostia Park. Yeah. When you come in there, there's a railroad over there, and then there's those tracks, shooting 92 or what have you. We'd be right out there with our books right before you go over the railroad tracks, because we had Eid over there. So we over there, sold $400. It don't sound like much. But when you don't have no overhead, it's all free money. And you don't have overhead. That's like now, $400 is like, it don't mean nothing. I mean, it means something, but $400, $1,000, it's not. The point is this. When we came here with a mission and a plan, and we fulfilled that mission. We did that. In the process, we affected the community around us, because the DC was already, everybody's here, the government is here. And had nobody been successful in DC, nobody. The groups were just not successful here. So we just got busy. But we had acquired an excellent feeling of what was going on in the United States, because we traveled around the United States all the time, giving talks, lectures, raising funds, and visiting all the mosques, the Masjid. And in those days, every masjid during that era, we knew where it was. We knew its state of progress. And we watched Islam grow and develop here in America. And we also watched the attitudes, the attitude that people have right now, where if you're a Muslim, so what? Why? Because the government that made the Muslims fear each other, because they got Muslims telling on each other and they got it right. So shoot, in those days, I remember we was in Texas. It's a Masjid on Musa Street, University of Texas over here. And we got there early in the morning, around 1 or 2 o'clock. We just climbed in the window, went to sleep, and when the brothers came at Fajr, oh, salam alaikum, you know, and that's how they was. That was the way, it was friendly.